Okay, with reference to the letter first, Mike, I just have a question. It indicated in the letter that council offered an opinion related to, let's see, it said council opined. I was trying to follow it, but I didn't have it with me at the moment.
That would be under the heading SR 89A roadway ownership, and I believe it would be the second paragraph.
The agreement could not be amended to extend the deadline, as the city opined that such action would be subject to a possible referendum. Is that the case? I've never heard that before.
I think that they're implying that there might have been a communication early on where we talked about the theoretical possibility of that, but we've had discussions with ADOT attorneys even recently before the meeting on the 17th of June, where it's been our opinion, and it's their opinion after discussing with legal counsel, that a subsequent amendment to the agreement would not be subject to a referendum because it would be an administrative fulfillment of the legislative act that the City Council took in adopting the route transfer agreement in the first place. And so certainly there's been no firm opinion by the city, at least in my mind, that a subsequent agreement would ever be subject to a referendum. I think we talked about mere possibilities at the very outset when the referendum was happening, but that has really never been a definitive opinion of the city. I think ADOT has kind of latched onto that at times in order to bolster its decision to do what it's done. But and I can tell you in my conversations with their council that that has not been a definitive opinion.
Okay, well that might need some clarification then with ADOT. Just a couple of points that I'd like to make, and then certainly other councilors may have something that they'd like to add to it. I have been, just from a historical perspective, I did attend the Chinle ADOT board meeting at which they made the decision to ignore the council's request for an extension on the deadline so that the referendum of the people of Sedona could be meaningful and could actually influence the next steps in this process, and have chosen to proceed with their decision to put in continuous roadway lighting along Highway 89A, which has been an issue in this community for the last 5 or 6 years since it was first proposed, and there was overwhelming lack of support in the community for continuous roadway lighting. So we are basically back to, I know that the issue of take over the highway or not take over the highway kind of came in between that, but we are somewhat back to the issue of a community that does not want the continuous roadway lighting. There is certainly a segment of the population that does want continuous roadway lighting, but the majority of the community, I would expect, based on the last election, does not want the continuous roadway lighting. And so I just wanted to make a couple of points. One, that I was really disappointed in ADOT's decision not to extend their deadline, but there are certain things that we reach a point where we more or less have to accept that that is their decision at this time. Also, the fact that by making such a decision, they are also ignoring the constitutional rights of the citizens of Sedona to have a referendum that is meaningful and effective. And I know that they are very nicely in their letter saying that we do respect the referendum process. And you know, that really does look great in a letter. However, in effect, it's not really respecting the referendum process because it isn't allowing the referendum process to go forward. You know, I know that there would be certainly you know, and I have thought about and asked Mike about whether there were ways that we could really bring this before a judge who could make a decision on what the rights of the city are, would be, whether or not this is an unusual situation. It's one where that has not, there isn't a specific precedent for this kind of a situation in Arizona where there is a referendum tied into a decision and a contract. And it's the contract that makes it such a unique situation. But barring the possibility or looking at the probability that that might not be a situation that a judge would perhaps look on favorably. I guess I'm encouraged by the letter from ADOT that does leave the door open, that does suggest that when the referendum takes place, that the City Council could come back to ADOT to discuss again the opportunity for a route transfer. ADOT, over the next 25 years, will have a $47 billion gap between their revenues and their ability to do the various projects in Arizona that they need to do. At the most recent NACOG meeting, Chris Betzer did his bi-monthly report that talked about the fact that ADOT is operating entirely now on federal funds that have been cut, that the state is hardly supporting ADOT, and that it's coming out of rural roads and various other projects that they would have been doing. He also indicated that ADOT is looking at their route transfer programs. And we know that they are already talking to Phoenix and other cities in the valley about taking over parts of Highway 60. I think it's Highway 60. So we have a trend that really is one where ADOT is not going to have the money to take care of the roads in rural Arizona the way they need to. And so we are in a situation where we could be faced with Highway 89A coming back to us anyway because of their route transfer program that they're looking at, and also their strategy, which is to give back city streets that are functioning as city streets with street lights and with driveway cuts and various other things. So when we look at the whole situation, while I am disappointed, I realize that there is a little bit of hope in the letter from ADOT and their willingness to talk about this again. And so it would seem to me that it's going to be really important for us to set a date for the referendum and to have a really, really good education process during the referendum process so that it is meaningful. We have a responsibility. We as a council did a resolution on the first night that we were seated that said that we would take all political, financial, and other means to ensure that ADOT would not be going with continuous roadway lighting. And so while we are not pursuing legal means, I think we need to pursue the political means, which means the referendum, and that we need to pursue it vigorously so that our citizens really do have an opportunity to have a voice and to make their